Hello, everyone, and welcome to Resale Revolution podcast. I'm Andrew,
And I'm Derek.
and our guest today is Travis Foster from Boosted Digital. Welcome, Travis. Derik and I have worked with Travis for years on various projects, and he is now the marketing coordinator for CASA. And we thought it'd be a great opportunity to have Travis on and pick his brain about marketing and how resellers can use the internet to increase their sales. So, welcome, Travis, again. If you don't mind, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks. So I started my career after college at a couple startup companies doing anything digital marketing for the most part. And then I worked at advertising agencies for a few years and decided that I like to do this stuff from the comfort of my own home. But more than anything is I like to work directly with people. I like to work with business owners because I realized that I'm driven by good ideas. And so I like working with business owners that are really passionate about whatever their niche happens to be. Like Drew, I remember we got connected through floor sweepers and scrubbers, and I could tell that you were passionate about the topic, and that invigorates me to do good work. So, um, that's kind of what I'm interested in. So, yeah, I wear many hats for my company now, and they all involve digital marketing or online sales of some kind.
That's cool. So tell us, what is Boosted Digital?
So, Boosted Digital I started it 8 years ago. It's really just me and a network of contractors and freelancers and things like that that I can kind of reach out to and hire whenever things need to be done, like graphic designers or developers or copywriters, whatever needs to happen. I have somebody that can do it. So I usually work directly with a business owner or someone in the marketing department if it's a larger company, and build them a custom plan based on what they need, and then based on those needs, I can go out and find the resources that will make it happen.
So, Travis, out of all your little specialties that you have, what would you say is your favorite part of doing all these things for these companies? Like, what do you excel at the most, in your opinion?
Definitely the data part of it, I would say, is I find it most fun to be able to prove if your marketing and advertising strategies are working. So, all the way from if you run like a Facebook campaign or a Google Ads campaign, or even if you're just posting on social media regularly, I find it extremely important to track that all the way through to your sales, and track that as close to detail as possible. That way, you know if you're wasting time or not, because really, business owners, their number one asset is time. So if you are posting all the time on Facebook and you're able to prove that, man, all the work that I'm doing on Facebook really isn't working, my awareness really isn't increasing, my sales aren't increasing, things like that, maybe it's time to transition to a different platform, or maybe it's time to completely reinvigorate your strategy for that particular platform. So I like to be able to prove what is making sales and what isn't making sales. So using tools like Google Analytics to look at the back end of your website, or using like Facebook Insights if you're using Facebook, just to be able to look at the data and look at the hard facts to see if your things are working. That's what really brings me joy.
Cool. So I do know one of the things I enjoyed early on with working with you, Travis, is uh, especially in my past life companies I've had, is as I'm a very visual person and I love marketing. Like I love shooting video, I love taking pictures, and I always thought I excelled at it to whatever level that actually means. And it was early on that I realized that things that I find appealing don't necessarily mean the people I'm trying to reach find appealing. And just like what you talked about, the data doesn't lie. And I remember early on when you would talk to me like, hey, that's a really, really cool video you did. but nobody cares. And how you present it and how you post it and what channels you're sticking it out on, it's just not working. And I was just beating a dead horse for no reason. I was still enjoying doing it. It just, I wasn't getting any gain from it. My return on investment was basically zero. And obviously, just someone telling you it's not working is one thing. Someone like you, Travis, showing me that it is serving me no purpose other than to say I'm posting crap, was all it was doing. So that's good stuff. I like that.
Yeah, that's good feedback because a lot of it, yeah, you have to kind of move your feelings aside a little bit, and you have to
That's
be
hard. That's
okay.
hard.
It is hard. I struggle with it all the time too. As a marketer, you have to forget some of your biases and look at the research and look at the data, because it's really just a constant game of science, right? Is you're constantly coming up with what you think is going to work, your hypothesis, and you put something out there, it bombs, and then you have to figure out, you have to swallow your pride and say, okay, let's adjust from here. And my personal, the things that I enjoy personally, I work with a lot of companies that I market them in a way that is completely different than me, right? I target them to people that are the polar opposite of me, and it's something that you have to just follow the data, follow the research of what your audience looks like, and then create content and ads and marketing and appeal to that target market regardless of who you are as a person, which is hard because, like you said, naturally you you open a business based on the things that you like, and you kind of envision your marketing strategy going a certain way, and when things don't go that way, you have to be able to, yeah, like you said, you know move
Change.
on.
Uh, Something else I wanted to bring up. This happened very early on when we first started working together. Travis, is I used to be in the industrial cleaning business per se, industrial equipment. And although I had amazing passion for it and I loved demoing it, like I said, videos and taking pictures, and I would do something I thought was amazing, something that no one's ever done before, and I would post it, I would share it, all these things, and I would get 100 views. And one day, as you're standing in my office, you looked at me and you kind of said something along these lines of, "I'm sorry, Drew, but sweepers and scrubbers just aren't sexy." And it literally broke my heart. It literally broke my heart. And I didn't know where to go with that, right? Like, and so I spent like literally however many years later trying to make sweepers and scrubbers sexy, at least in the videos I shot and the angles and all these other little things. And but God, I mean, literally every time I think of you, Travis, I think of that conversation and how impactful that was to me. It hurt my ego, it hurt my pride, it hurt my passion. I mean, it hurt everything about me. But it was very true. Like, I talk industrial equipment with my kids or my wife, and their eyes immediately glaze over, right? There's
Yeah.
nobody cares about it like I did. And it's just a simple truth. And so that's the hard part about the marketing aspect, is trying to find something that works, roll with the trends and follow the data, like you were saying. I mean, that's how you're successful with marketing.
Yeah, and the big difference between like your company that was very B2B, so you were selling to other businesses, where the beautiful thing about like antique stores and other resellers is they're B2C, and B2C stuff just by nature is sexier. I mean, you're gonna have higher engagement on social media, you're going to have more interest, you're gonna have more opportunities for content, I think, where especially resellers that sell like all sorts of different products. I mean, Derek, I know you sell a lot of collectibles, and just in collectibles, your opportunity for content is massive. I mean, baseball cards. You could talk about all sorts of different things about baseball, or
Oh, for
superhero
sure.
figurines. There's so much content about superheroes and things like that. So resellers kind of have this advantage to where they can create all sorts of content. They're really not confined to a box, where unfortunately with the B2B side that you were in, Andrew, is like there's really only one product, not one model, but one real product that you can
there's
pick it.
only so many businesses you can hit, right? Where there's,
Right.
there might be, let's say, 20,000 industrial style facilities in Kansas City, but there's 5 million baseball fans or Marvel fans in this,
Yeah.
so like you're saying, I mean, and that's just, that's the truth.
So I think related to what you guys are talking about and how, it really isn't, that relates to resellers because it really isn't what they find sexy. It's
Right.
what their buyers find sexy.
Hmm.
So
and
that
following
that
solid
really,
trends, right? And following solid trends. I mean, you may not like baseball, but if baseball cards are hot right now, I mean, there's only one time to strike the iron, and that's when it's hot. And if you want to let those trends pass you by and not take advantage of it, I mean, that's just bad business.
Yeah, like Derek, you said in the last podcast, you saw the trend of poppers. You know, it's like you
hmm
didn't. I don't imagine that you sit around and play with poppers, but you saw that
no,
the
absolutely not. Yeah.
yeah, so you saw the trend of poppers, and you're like, hey, that's hot right now. And Jen, the pudgy picker, she did a great job of talking about that too. Is some of the things that she really likes didn't sell. She
Yeah.
said that she does that like every week she'll go through her booth and say, wow, I really like this thing. I can't believe it didn't sell. And this other thing that I didn't really like that much, it sold out. You know what I mean? So yeah, absolutely. That's a good point.
So, Travis, what do you think is the biggest thing that, besides the data? I know you like the data, but what would you say the biggest thing is that you teach your customers? And what exactly is digital marketing for some out there who might be a little confused on what digital marketing actually is?
Yeah. So digital marketing, without sounding too basic, is any type of marketing you could do for your company digitally. And most of the time, that means website or social media or help with your emails or things like that. But it can also be some offline stuff, which is why they don't call it like online marketing. Is let's say that you have an antique store and all of your vendors have an app downloaded on their phone that they can use to do various things in your store, like pay rent or things like that. So that is not necessarily online or even pushing yourself publicly, but it's using digital devices to help improve the efficiency and the marketing of your store. So there's a lot that encompasses that. There's a lot of things that I touch to make sure that a business can work well using computers and phones and all those types of things. Um, and then to answer the other side of that is um, as far as teaching goes. So one of my part-time jobs is I teach classes at a community college. They're continuing education classes. So like adults, usually that are already in the advertising space, they will come back and get refreshed on this stuff because it's been around for over a decade, but it's still relatively new. Like even 8 years ago when I started my company, I was still building PowerPoint presentations on how to teach my coworkers to sell some of the things I do. Like how do I talk about SEO and how do I sell it? How do I talk about Facebook advertising and how do I sell it? Things like that. So I
But
would build these.
this stuff is also constantly moving
Changing.
and changing. I remember a few years ago, I read a book on Facebook advertising. And by the time I got done with it and talked to you about it, Travis, you're like, yeah. That's like 2 years old. Like most of that stuff doesn't work anymore. And I was like, well, that was a waste of time.
Yeah, I had a conversation like that just this morning. Is like, and I find it hard because when I worked at the advertising agency, I remember I wasn't old enough to drink, so I was the young guy on the job, and now I'm over 30, so I still kind of have to think about the good old days, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so old because I think about the good old days on a lot of this stuff. Like for example, Google, you used to be able to look in Google Analytics and see what people were searching for when they got to your website. I mean, that was golden information to have, right? And it seems obvious that they would supply that to you because they have the data. But several years ago, they started taking that data away. So now it's you can't see that in Google Analytics. Um, and they cited privacy concerns. They don't they don't want you to infringe on somebody else's privacy. But that's kind of silly because you can sign up for Google Ads and start paying for that data, but they tell you that it's for privacy concerns. So really, they're just trying to sell more advertising. Um, and Facebook really did the same thing. I mean, I don't know if you remember the early days of Facebook before advertising is if you created a business page and you posted something, a lot of your followers would see that and like it and engage with it. It was so much easier to engage with your own audience back then. But now everybody likes like 100 pages. They have 1,000 friends. They're in a bunch of groups. So all of those things are fighting for order in Facebook. And then they started pushing businesses down even more because guess what? They want you to pay for advertising to get that exposure back. Right. Yeah. So yeah, at the community college level, I teach search engine optimization, which is making sure that your website can show up high in search results whenever somebody searches for something. So let's say that you own an antique store, or you even have like a little resale shop. Like let's say something that's really popular around me is buying and selling used clothing, like name brand clothing. So let's say you have a shop like that. If somebody searches for gently used clothing in my area, then there's a higher chance if you use SEO that your website will show up higher than others. And that tends to work extremely well. I also teach Google Analytics, which I love, just being able to see what kind of data is on your website. I teach social media, just general social media marketing. And then I teach planning and buying digital advertising. So how to use your money, paid advertising on Google and social media and all those things to push people to your business.
What's your favorite besides the Google Analytics? What would you say is your second in line that you enjoy doing the most?
I would say the planning and buying digital advertising, but really that's kind of a cheap answer because it's for the same reason. I like that the type of advertising that I teach is just again to prove that it's working versus not working. If you're going to be doing a campaign and you don't know whether you should use Facebook or Google or Twitter or LinkedIn or all these different platforms, well, you should test it. So in those classes, I teach people how to do that and how to test it and how to prove the results. So yeah, that one.
I mean, because I'm always, every time you end up doing something for me, you always want to send me a new link to whatever landing page we're trying to push people to, Travis.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I'd get a little irritated because I'd want to do it right now. And you'd be like, give me a few minutes because I got to create this thing. And so I can give you a new landing page so we can track how that ad actually does, how many people are actually clicking on it. And it was always, I mean, I didn't like it because it didn't happen right now. But obviously it took, some time for me to completely understand the whole, trying to see, what kind of, ROI you're getting on your efforts. So
yeah,
it's all really good stuff. I love it.
Yeah. And like for your situation, we were using offline QR codes. And that's one of the things that I teach companies is it's not just online stuff that you can track. You can track your offline stuff too. So I've worked with some big companies doing marketing campaigns, and these guys were doing TV ads, radio ads, billboards, ads on Pandora, Google, Facebook. I mean, the list goes on and on. And so we had to manage all of these campaigns that were happening, simultaneously. And we can track using using a few tricks, like having separate landing pages or having vanity URLs, or something what's called a UTM, which is a link that allows you to track exactly where people came from. Using all these methods and much more, we were able to actually see how TV was performing compared to radio, compared to the Google ads. So directly comparing the money that we spent on TV ads, comparing that to the money we spent on Google ads, and seeing how they performed. An example in like an antique store is, let's say that you have like an eBay store, okay? Because every antique booth owner that I know has way more stuff at their house than they do in their booth. So, for example, if somebody's walking through a store and they see your booth and they see a lot of things that they like, let's say that you specialize in World War II weaponry, something that I like, and they see a couple things and they're like, man, I wonder if he's got this type of rifle. But you could have a little like QR code in your booth that says, not finding what you're looking for, scan my QR code to look at my eBay store or something like that. Or see my listing somewhere else. And you can scan that QR code, go to a landing page that lists all the stuff that I've got at home. A lot of store owners might not like that.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
So it's like a lot of store
owners. You
owners
also have a link to a Facebook Marketplace user.
Absolutely.
That shows all their items.
Absolutely. So you'd have to work with if you're a vendor, you'd have to work with your store owner and vice versa, because obviously the store owner would want you not to bypass their commission, right? But maybe there's some way that you could work that out, maybe it's a small increase to your rent to be able to advertise your eBay page or your Facebook Marketplace page or something like that. It's up to you, but these are all things that are possible in the grand scheme of things.
As an antique mall owner, the best thing that you can ever do for your vendors, in my opinion, is allow them to be successful. I get what you're saying about maybe losing a few items off commission here and there because they contacted you outside the store. But if I owned an antique mall, my number one goal would be for my vendors to be as successful as possible. And if it meant them hanging up, a piece of paper in a nice frame right on the edge of their booth with a QR code that allowed them, a walk-by customer, to scan everything or scan it and then to see everything I had at home, and that I could bring it into the store for sale, which would probably be the easiest for most people, or go to their, eBay, which might be, as hard or whatever. But, the success of your vendors, because the more successful they are, the happier they're going to be, the longer they're going to stay paying rent. And if they get a lot of scans off that QR code, because the QR codes I still use for some of my other companies, I get to see how many QR scans I get and where they come from. Mm-hmm. So I'm always intrigued by that and by who's actually scanning this crazy QR code that I got stuck on the side of something. So, if they were getting a lot, then yeah, I agree. They could say, hey, if you're going to hang one up, it's going to be 10 more bucks a month, or something along those lines. But that's a great idea. Out of all the antique malls I've been in, I don't think I've ever seen that. Have you seen that before, Derik?
I actually done something similar last year. So I bought an Amazon return pallet that had a bunch of air fryers on it. So I took pictures of them and posted an ad on Marketplace. And I said, hey, I have these 4 air fryers available. They were like I was selling them for like half the price of what they were at retail. Here's the store I'm at, and here's the hours they're open. Come grab one. Mm. Within 3 days, 4 of them were gone.
Yeah.
Just from Facebook Marketplace.
That's a great idea. I mean, and if you didn't want to get that detailed, which I do recommend that you do, but you could just put your phone number on it or something like that, right? I'm sure there's vendors out there doing that.
With that kind of success, Derik, have you tried doing that again? I mean, that sounds like a super smart idea, right? Like, you could buy bulk of some random crazy thing, like you said, from some Amazon pallet or whatever. I mean, I don't even know where. I'm always shocked when people find this crazy stuff in crazy places, but that's a really super good idea. I mean, not only doing that on the Facebook Marketplace, but the QR code is, that is super, super smart.
I've never done a QR code, but I'm getting ideas now. So.
I was talking to a buddy of mine who has a lawn care company, and I was, you know, he was just talking about how he was staying small and doing certain things. And actually, I think before we started this podcast, we were talking about him for a few minutes. But I was telling him the easiest thing that probably the cheapest marketing I've ever done in my life for all the times I've owned companies and everything is thank you cards. And I used to send them out with Midwest. If we demoed, we sold you something, you rented something. I loved sending out thank you cards with a few business cards in it. And it's, you go to vistaprint.com, or I think it's .com. I don't think, maybe it could be .net, but they're cheap. They're easy. It's fast. It takes 30 seconds to fill one out. And I bet you 50% of the people that I would send that stuff to, either I'd get referral business or they'd end up calling us back to conduct more business, because everybody loves that small personal touch. And it was like the cheapest, easiest marketing. I don't know if you consider that digital marketing to a certain degree, but easy and cheap.
Yeah. No.
And same thing, you could put your QR code on something like that and have them scan. I mean, I don't know if Derik, at your mall, do you know who bought, if they're a customer of, or like part of the newsletter at your mall, Derik, do you know who bought it, and could you send them something to tell them thank you?
I couldn't, no.
And someone ought to come up with something for that.
They should. So, and speak about that a little more. I knew that things were going to kind of get on rocky. It would be a little rocky if I posted an ad to an eBay store where I'm selling stuff directly. Mm-hmm. So that's why I just posted an ad with the store, the location, and the hours they were open. Mm-hmm. So when they come in to buy that item, that store owner is still getting their commission from it.
Yeah.
After they purchase it. So
do most antique malls have rules for, people hang pictures up in their booths. So I know, why can't you just hang a QR code and say it's just wall art? Scan me, right? But it's $17,000. No one's ever going to buy it.
I have advertised my online T-shirt business in my booth with a QR code. So
here you go.
Like sometimes I get returns on shirts and stuff, and if I've got 3 or 4, I'll take them in, hang them up, and sell them in there, and then I'll have a little flyer next to them that says, "You like these? There's more online at."
That's smart.
So
yeah, and that's a good point, because a lot of resellers, a lot of our target market, they sell all sorts of stuff. I mean, very rarely. I shouldn't say very rarely, but most people don't specialize in one thing. You have a variety. So every booth is a variety, or even if you have an eBay store, it's usually a variety of some kind. So that's a good point.
Why would you think that some resellers do not sell online? What would be your thoughts behind that, Travis?
Good question. Mostly fear. And this is just talking to resellers. So if I'm in an antique mall and there's a vendor restocking their shelves, I'll just have a conversation with them. Do you sell online? Almost always they say, no, I don't. And they kind of do it in like a head hanging kind of way, like, no, I don't. Kind of like it's been in the back of their mind for probably like 15 years, where they're like, no, I don't. And there's probably someone else that's trying to encourage them, like, hey, I really think that you should start putting this stuff online. There's probably other vendors pressuring you into doing it, or maybe some grandkids or some other family members of some kind or something like that. It's usually fear of the unknown. So number one is, if you were going to sell on eBay, then signing up for an account and remembering that username and password and going through all the steps to set up your store just sounds daunting to most people. Even though, as a word of encouragement, it's gotten so much easier over the years. And you can talk to anybody who has gone through that process, and they will tell you that, yes, at first it's a little bit of work to memorize and figure out what's going on. But once you do it a few times, it's a whole new revenue stream for you. And the second biggest thing that may actually be bigger is shipping. People are terrified of shipping. Um, and I don't think that they're necessarily wrong. Shipping is, it's hard to figure out at first, definitely. Is like, okay, what service am I going to use? How much is it going to cost? Am I going to go drop it off at the pack and ship place? Am I going to pack it myself? What labels am I going to use? There's all these printers online and it's confusing. Do I need to insure my package? How well do I need to package it to make sure that this thing doesn't break? Um, am I willing to ship some of these things that aren't fragile, but not some of these other things? There's like a million questions that come with shipping.
You know, the weight, all those things. I mean, it turns into a cluster pretty fast.
Very fast. And so I would say that is, it might be the number one thing, but those two in my mind are tied from what I've asked people, is mostly just
How would, I mean, I know this is kind of not in your forte, but what would you recommend for the shipping issues? Like just bite the bullet, stay in it for a while, figure it out. It'll get easier. How would you try to convince someone if they said it's all about the shipping? I just don't want to have to deal with that crap. Uh, I guess it also kind of falls into play how serious they are about doing their business. If it's just a kind of a slight side hustle, it's just as much social, being in the antique mall, or is it really something they're trying to make money and make, have a business? I mean, but what would you say to someone about the shipping? I mean, sorry,
great
I
question.
rambled there.
No, that's okay. If you're listening to this podcast, my answer is to talk to Derek or to talk to Andrew, who both have shipping experience doing this stuff. If you're not comfortable reaching out to those guys, reach out to a friend of yours. Or if you're in a booth and you have only had a booth and you're scared of going online, talk to another vendor in your store that sells on eBay, because guaranteed there is going to be a couple, and get their input. Say, hey, do you take your stuff down to the pack and ship place, or do you pack it yourself, or what boxes to use? Ask them all your questions, because in the reality, a lot of people at those stores are in it for the social experience as well. So I'm sure there would be somebody willing to help you get through that process. So yes, it's going to be a bumpy road. I encourage you to push through it.
Hey, Derek, I don't know about your store, but I think it'd be a novel and neat idea. And I don't know if, once again, it's all about the antique mall owner wanting their vendors to be successful. But I wonder if 10, 15 vendors inside of a store got together, approached the owner and said, hey, we would like to sell more stuff online. We're willing to let you store Mr. or Mrs. Store owner to charge us a little bit, but would you help us set up an area in back or around the side where we have access to boxes and bubble wrap and stuff like that to possibly package our stuff up? Do you know of any antique malls that actually do that and help out their vendors to try to lessen that blow? Because I would imagine that's a huge reason why people don't want to sell on eBay, is they don't want to have to deal with that crap at home. And if the owner had a label printing machine and they could type it in, print a label, put it on there, and then then they don't have to take it anywhere. You can just have UPS or FedEx show up once a day and pick all that stuff up. Or United States Postal Service will do it too. If you're using their boxes and stuff, when they come pick up mail, if they know that they are on average going to have 5 or 6 packages a day, they will come pick them up.
Now, I haven't heard of that, but I think it's a brilliant idea, not only for the vendors in the shop, but the shop owner as a business opportunity. Because they could, if you were using their ship station, they could charge you whatever on top of your rent every month.
Well, I guess I don't know how they would gauge it, but you could say it's $2. Boxes are cheap. You can go on Uniliner and buy so many small little cube boxes. Boxes are cheap. And obviously, if you're trying to
counting how many you could reuse, if vendors brought in all their old boxes.
Yeah.
Right. You can just have a plethora of that. We all get so much random Amazon stuff.
And bubble wrap and everything else. So.
I guess you could, versus throwing that in your recycling bin and have it go overseas into some other part of the ocean, I guess you could just reuse it to ship something.
Well, I know our store, we take donations. We ask for newspaper and unused bags, and they just reuse them in the store.
Smart.
That's smart. I like that. That's smart. That's smart thinking there.
Yeah.
Because people feel good about repurposing stuff, and if you're actually repurposing it, I mean, I get as many Walmart bags as possible because I use them to help clean up after the dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing too. Like, you don't think that people think about this stuff. I can't tell you how many customers come in the store and they say, I don't want a bag.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put more bags out there.
Mm-hmm.
So people are aware of this.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah. It's a problem. Plastic is a problem, but that's another story. So,
yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think sellers should have their own domain name for like whether they forward it to their eBay store or their Facebook, if they're a store owner, because a lot of these store owners don't even have websites.
Right.
So
yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, almost every, I mean, not every, and I apologize, antique mall owner, if you have a website, but there's a large portion of them when I look them up and I see website, I'm like, oh, look at that. I click on it. Sometimes it will be a dead domain. Or it just goes right to their Facebook page. And I'm always just like, man, for me as a business owner and a guy who loves marketing, I find it crazy that you would at least not have some sort of presence on the internet, whether it's just a picture of your store. And, once every couple of months, you just updated some photos, a vendor highlight area. It blows my mind that most of them have nothing. And then when you go to their Facebook page, they haven't posted in 9 months.
Yeah.
And that's a two-parter before you answer.
Yeah, sure.
So I know that Google does this business thing now where they'll give you your own business when you're indexed in the search engine.
Mm-hmm.
But
what does that mean? What does that mean?
So they have like their own business platform where you can go in and create a Google business. And that's going to list you when you search for certain businesses on Google's index.
Do I have that, Travis?
No. That is one of the things that goes with Google My Business. So one thing that Google will do automatically is if they do see you in the index, like Derek's talking about, they will automatically scrape your information, like your business name, your phone number, your address, all those types of things, and they will list you as a business. The big caveat to that is you have to have a storefront for that to be possible. The reason for that is your address is going to be listed online as a business. So if you are just selling stuff on eBay out of your basement, you may not want people showing up at your door. So it is a really cool feature. And every antique mall out there and every reseller that has a physical location should do it because it's free. And it's so what you have to do is search for Google My Business. And it's a process where you have to enter your business information. And at the end, they will mail you a physical postcard that has a code on it, like a little number, a PIN, I should say. And you have to go into your account, enter that PIN, and then boom, you're verified. Then you will show up on the Google Maps and things like that. But again, people will show up to your house, so or whatever your business location is that you entered. So, but that is a super low hanging fruit that you can use as a business for sure, Derek.
So the rest of my question was so if you have an actual website, rather than say you bought a domain and you forwarded it to your Facebook or if you had an actual website, is Google going to rank you higher because you have that website?
Yeah, absolutely. So it won't necessarily rank your like Facebook page higher in search results. Okay. It won't necessarily rank your Google listing higher, although it can. What it does is your website allows you just another platform to be able to push your website up through rankings. So when you think about it this way, Facebook has been around a long time and everybody knows what it is. So it's typically going to rank pretty well, especially if you have some following on Facebook. and people search for your brand name, it's probably your Facebook's going to be up there. It's going to be top 10 for sure. But if you have your website rolling and you have some blog posts and videos and content and all these really good things about marketing going on your website, it gives you significantly more opportunity to rank high for certain keywords. So it doesn't necessarily make you rank higher. It gives you more opportunity to rank for more, if that makes sense.
Right. I'm just thinking about customers that are going to Google and typing antique malls near me.
Yeah.
Or flea markets near me.
Absolutely. You should absolutely have a website that helps kind of talk about those things. And going back to what Drew just said, both of your questions together, a lot of what you're talking about is like, should I have a domain name, or should I have like a nice website? Should I have a nice logo? Should my email addresses be at Gmail, or should they be at my business name? So all of these things you have to remember, is a lot of marketing is subconscious. So a lot of what your customers or potential customers think about is in the back of their mind, and they may never tell you what they're thinking because they're not thinking it consciously. So for example, whenever you go to those Facebook pages and you see that they have like a website or whatever, and you click on it and it's a broken website, right? They haven't updated it, or they let their domain lapse or something like that. In the back of your mind, maybe even in the front of your mind, you're thinking, what a dump. Or maybe not what a dump, just like, okay, that already just like reduced the chance that I'm going to buy from them just a little bit. And then you go to their Facebook page and they haven't posted in 9 months, and you go, weird. I'm not going to buy from them just that.
They went even lower. Yeah.
Yep. And then you see their logo. It's not very good. A little bit less. And then you see their email address is the best antique mall at gmail.com.
Or Yahoo.
At Yahoo. Or sbcglobal.net. All of a sudden, you're kind of like, I don't know if this store is going to have the quality items or the things that I'm really looking for.
And for me, it's it's like a lot of things in life. If you're not willing to take something that's your livelihood serious, I don't know what you're doing, right? It's not, even if it was a small hobby, I would want it to look as good as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And, domain names, a very simplistic website. If you have a domain, a proper email address, Andrew at, andrewsantiques.com, are all very simple, easy things and reasonably cheap to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're not to me, you could, I do believe on GoDaddy, you can set up a very basic site, for
within
very
like 10 minutes
for very, very cheap. These are all things you can do for literally for under $50. You can do them all.
Right.
It just blows my mind. I don't want to insult anybody by saying amateur hour, but whenever I see someone actually trying to conduct business, a real business, I'm not talking some side little hustle selling used mattresses or something like that. I'm talking you own a mall and yours is Andrew's Antiques at gmail.com. First thing that hits my mind is they don't care as much as I would care.
Right.
Right.
And yeah, and when they don't have an actual domain, they don't even, their Facebook page is junk. I just don't understand, because most of these things are free, especially Facebook. When you find a company that doesn't even do anything on Facebook, you're like, this is a free platform.
Mm-hmm.
Now running ads costs money, but to not use a platform at all, like LinkedIn, as well, it just blows my mind. I just don't understand.
I agree. And
to me, there's so much untapped potential.
Yep.
Because a lot of these malls have logos that look like they were made by a 7-year-old with some crayons.
Yeah.
So if all these malls, if the majority of them actually look good, they were pleasing to the eye, they were, like Drew said, professional, they had their own domains. Imagine the eyes we could get on this industry very quickly.
Yeah.
And the new customers coming in.
Yep. And most of that dials back to, the conversations I've had with resellers it all goes back to that fear of the unknown. You know, it's like, well, I don't really know how often I should post to Facebook, or I don't really know this or whatever. It's like you have to start. And Drew, I know you just said, you know, a long journey begins with a single step, you know. So just start. After a while, I mean, you don't have to be perfect. If you listen to all these marketers, and including me, or all these people on YouTube that are like, oh, you have to post like 30 times a day or whatever, you know, you don't have to listen to their advice. You just have to start. And that's one thing that I have to steer a lot of my clients and students away from is they're like, well, I read this research thing that says I need to do this and I need to do this and I need to do this. And it's like, don't compare yourself to other people unless you have a competing antique mall or a competing reseller that's right in your town and is a perfect apples to apples comparison that you can model yourself after. Definitely take their advice, but really what you need to do is compare you to yourself. You know, compare how many website visits you're getting, compare how many people are walking through that door, compare how many times your phone is ringing, compare that to how your baseline, and then start doing some of these things. So start posting to Facebook regularly, see if your website visits go up, or see if your phone starts ringing, see if people start walking through the door, and then make adjustments based on that. So just really look at yourself and manage your time in a way that you can implement some of these things one at a time to start moving forward.
So that kind of leads me into another question I have is, what are some of the lowest hanging, fruit that digital marketing, resellers can do in digital marketing? They should go after first.
Yeah.
What do you think those are?
So great question. I mean, the two that I think of the lowest hanging are ones that we've talked about. Is number one, social media. Like you said, it's free for you to go out and try these platforms. It costs you some time, which, like I said, that's most business owners' number one asset is time. But it does cost you some time. Go out there, try a platform as well as you can. In the reseller industry, it's really difficult to beat Facebook and Pinterest. So try one of those. The second thing is those local listings that Derek brought up. Is, if you um, search for something like, oh, I want a pizza near me or something, and you Google that, and it pops up with like Pizza Hut, Domino's, and all these chain restaurants, and then there's a couple local places in there. There's probably way more local places that don't show up because they're not doing their local listings properly. Same thing happens with resellers. Is whenever someone searches for antiques near me, or used clothing near me, or used appliances near me, um, and you don't have a Google My Business listing set up, it's very hard to compete at that point, because those people are going to click on the first couple antique malls that are closest to them and go there. And it's very rare that they're going to go to multiple per day, although they do, it's just rare. So that is a very low hanging fruit. And Google, the reason that I talk about Google so much is Google is the owns the lion's share of the search market. I mean, they own like 80% of the search market. So all 80% of every search that happens on the web happens on Google. That doesn't mean that the other 20% is irrelevant. There are a lot of local listings out there that aren't Google. I mean, think about Yelp. They're their own listing company. Um, Yellow Pages. Facebook is actually a local listing company. There's literally hundreds of them. There is a service that I use called Moz Local, which is MOZ and local. This is a company that has a lot of products and services, but one of their Moz Local service allows you to enter your business address, your phone number, all your details, all your photos, all that stuff, and you push a button and you pay like $14 a month, and it pushes your listing to all of these listings. So all of a sudden, your business information just got shotgunned onto the web. Now, you can do all of those local listings for free. Like Yelp is free, Facebook's free, Google's free, Bing, All of these are free. But again, it goes back to that time thing. And in my opinion, almost every business would be willing to spend $15 a month rather than spend 20 hours trying to put out all of those business listings. So that's kind of what I recommend.
So I had no idea Yelp and some of those other things you had. I mean, I guess even I'm naive to certain aspects of that. So like Yelp, the Google My Business, and other little platforms like that, you actually have to physically go on there, put your business information in.
Yep.
And if you never do, so because sometimes I'll Google something and it will say, do you own this page?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be like,
Yeah.
no. And I'm always like, what would happen if I clicked on it and said, yeah, I own this page? You know what I'm saying? Because you'll Google a business or you'll Google something and businesses will come up and you go to that page or that section of Google and it clearly no one's ever claimed it.
Right.
And I'm always like, if you click on that, where do you go to? Do they ask for business info? Could you fill that out and try to say that you owned it?
Yes, you could. So what's happening there is like what Derik said, when your business information gets indexed by Google, which just means that, hey, we have this information, they will put it up as a business listing that may not be owned by anybody. And if you own that business, or really if you wanted to be a stinker, you could go in and try and claim that business yourself. And you could go through that whole process, claim that business, and then the same process, they're going to send you that postcard with that PIN number on it. So don't take this advice.
Hopefully you got access to that box. Right?
Yeah, you could go steal their mail, which, that's a federal offense. We did actually intend for you to do that, but you could probably
recommend that.
We do not
recommend that.
So you could, in theory, go steal their mail and actually claim that business. But there's
some good sized businesses I'll see, like pretty good sized companies,
right?
That have never claimed that. And I guess to a certain degree, I don't know, maybe my past companies have done that and I just was not smart enough to know that we did it. I have no idea.
And that's pretty bad because what Google can do a lot of times is they might think that you are a different business. Let me give you an example. There's a restaurant here in Kansas City called, it used to be called Oklahoma Joe's, but now it's called Joe's Kansas City. I know you guys know what I'm talking about.
Of course.
When they changed their name from Oklahoma Joe's to Joe's Kansas City, what a nightmare for marketing that is. Because not only did they have to change everything over to this new name legally and all over the place, right? You can only imagine. But another thing is, Google and all these other local listings were like, oh, these are two different restaurants. Oklahoma Joe's is a restaurant, and so's Joe's Kansas City. So to try and match those up and change them over rather than both of those things duplicating and existing at the same time, you need to make sure, now that's an extreme example, but you need to make sure that your business name, your phone number, and your address, they call them NAP citations. You don't have to remember that, but in name, address, phone number. You need to make sure that your NAP citations are uniform because Google could think that you're different businesses, which creates some complexities. You might not get the value in search if Google knew that you were the same business. And what's funny about the barbecue industry is sometimes barbecue restaurants don't even remember what their own name is. Like you might search for something and it might say like Ray's BBQ. Well, Google thinks that that's a different business than Ray's Barbecue spelled out. Or sometimes they will put B-B-Q, Ray's B-B-Q. All of these different ways to say barbecue could actually be hurting you. So make sure that you're consistent with your name, address, and phone number. It's actually pretty critical. So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
man. So if you were curious if your company was listed properly, how would you would just go to Google My Business and look up? Can you look up your company inside there? Like if someone thought they did have a problem, or if they Googled their company's name, their antique store's name, and found their listing, if they found that it was not claimed, what would you recommend about how they go about fixing that?
Great question. So yeah, they could do it manually, like what you're saying. They could go to Google, search their business, and see what their listing actually looks like. Or they could go to Yelp, search their business, and see what that listing looks like. But the tool that I mentioned earlier, Moz Local, you can use it for free to check what your business listing looks like across the board. So like you could go to Moz Local, type in any company, and see how they are doing on Moz Local. So type in your business name, see what your business is listed at under Google, Yelp. Oh, it couldn't find one for this platform. It couldn't find one for this platform. You're listed under a different phone number on this platform. It'll give you a grade, and you'll be able to see firsthand. So I recommend you use the tool. It's quite a bit easier.
And that's Moz, mozlocal.com.
It's moz.com. But the easiest way to find it is to just search for Moz Local.
Okay.
Yeah.
I learned something.
That's the goal, right?
That's good stuff, Travis. That's good stuff. How can resellers use paid advertising? What's the best way for them to do that? Go about that.
The lowest hanging fruit. So as a beginner, I would start advertising on social media. I mean, if you have a social media presence already, and you're posting to Facebook, try a few boosted posts. That's the easiest way to dip your toe in, just to say, hey, I created this post. It did pretty well. It got 100 likes. Now I want to boost this post to everybody who likes my page, and then just see if that increases your ROI like you want it to. That's the easiest way to do it. Now we can talk for hours about the advanced way to do it. But here's some golden nugget advice that I've learned over the years is with a limited marketing or with a limited advertising budget, it's almost always more cost efficient to start with something like Google search ads and some type of retargeting ads. So Google search ads is when someone types in a specific keyword. So let's do used Art Deco near me. You can actually advertise for that keyword. So whenever someone searches for used Art Deco and they hit enter, they could see your advertisement up here that says, go to Sally's Antique Mall. We have 100 booths that contain Art Deco pieces. And then try and get them to come to your website or your store over the rest of your competition. The reason that search ads work so well, and I don't
want to cut you off, but how, real quick here, give us like 30 seconds on if you're reasonably internet illiterate, as far as you understand that you need to do it and running those ads might be cool. How do I know what keywords, where would I get the keyword help? Because I love keywords. I'm a big keyword guy, and I always lean on you to tell me where I need to push that stuff. Where does someone go who doesn't know where to go?
Yeah, so Google provides pretty much all of their search data in a tool called Google Keyword Planner. Now, this is an advanced tool. I wouldn't recommend going down this path as a beginner, but if you are willing to go down this deep, dark path of advertising, the Google Keyword Planner will allow you to enter in keywords. Like, let's say you wanted to start advertising for Art Deco, or some of the things that make the most money. Let's say used furniture or used antiques or things like that. You can type it into the tool. Google will tell you approximately how many times that gets searched in your area, approximately how much that would cost to advertise for, and approximately how many visitors you would get to your store. And those numbers will change once you start advertising, but it will give you a baseline. So that's the best way to figure out what keywords to start using. And if you don't want to go crazy on keywords, you can stay very specific. Let's say you only want to advertise for, we're in Kansas City antique malls, and you only advertise for a 80-mile radius around Kansas City. You can absolutely do that. That way you're not wasting money advertising to someone in California and things like that, you can really hyper focus on exactly what you want to do. So that's kind of the pathway through that.
So to expand on that a little, I'm very, I'm not as, I know a little about marketing, but not a lot. So I know when you go and type in like Kansas City antique malls, if you scroll to the bottom of the page, you will get other keywords that you could possibly use for that same advertising, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that still go on Google? Can you see that at the bottom?
I think
it shows you like related keywords.
Yes, they do some of that. It really depends on the word. They have mostly replaced that with the people also ask section.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's mostly what they're trying to drive people to, is like, if you say, go ahead.
Instead of using that keyword planner, couldn't they go there and just grab all that? Just to kind of get a sample to start out with. You know?
Absolutely. Yes. And my whole process for that is, whenever I have a new project, I usually ask whoever knows what they're doing, like the business owner or the marketing person or whatever. I ask them, hey, give me 5 keywords that you would use to search for yourself. What do you think your customers should be using? And I use those 5 keywords. That's what I start with. And then I brainstorm maybe up to 20. And then I drop those keywords into the Google Keyword Planner. And then I spend the next 3 hours figuring out which keywords I think would perform the best and which ones wouldn't. And
if anybody's going to be interested in any of these links we're talking about, clearly we're going to put them down in the description of this podcast. So you can, I won't remember half of these names. I won't have to talk to you guys afterward to try to get some of this stuff. But all these names I've heard of, besides the Moz thing, I've never heard of that one. But obviously all these links are very important, I think, and well worth anybody's time to check out, see if they could help them.
For sure. Yeah.
I think we'll be doing a blog post on this as well.
Yeah.
Kind of, to help,
for sure,
help you guys get that low hanging fruit quickly.
Yeah.
Going to send you on the right path. So
what are some of the marketing trends of 23 of this year, of the last year or so?
Oh, marketing trends. Okay. Number 1 by far is AI. So artificial intelligence is kind of the hot button topic this year, not just for marketing, but for everything, right? So marketers and advertisers are scrambling to figure out how AI can help automate and help make their marketing advertising efforts improve. That goes down like a deep, dark tangent as well, but there are some people that are figuring some things out. But the easiest things are, people are using AI to build their logos. They're using AI to create videos, write blog posts, all these types of things. Every once in a while in technology, there will be a big change. And I would argue that this isn't even, really a technology thing. I think it's a human thing, is AI, right? And so we're all just trying to figure out how this is going to impact us. And there are going to be some big winners and some big losers in this shift, and it's really important for you as a business owner to think about how you can leverage that, because you're not going to get away with I shouldn't say that. You will get away with it. But if you can figure out a way to leverage that for you, you're going to come out ahead. So I would say that really nobody has the answers yet, and they might not for a while. So that one's kind of vague, and I'm sorry. But the second one that you can definitely take advantage of, the second trend is short form video. And this carries over from last year and several years before that. But TikToks, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Shorts, all these things are
Facebook Reels.
Yes. I'm sorry. Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels. That is where the trend is right now. I highly recommend that you get in front of that as soon as possible. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, resellers have this advantage of having all of these different types of products. So your ability to create short form video content about these products is limitless. You really just need to sit down, um, it's maybe every other week or every month or something, and brainstorm maybe 10 videos that you're going to come out with during that period and say, oh, okay, if I'm a business owner, this week I'm going to go over to Derek's booth and I'm going to show all the business cards that he has. I'm going to play some cool music and I'm going to make like an awesome joke or something like that. And then for this video, I'm going to go over to Rachel's booth where she has a bunch of Art Deco stuff. I'm going to create a short form video about that because people are consuming so much short form video right now. It's actually insane. So if you can get in front of those people that are watching TikToks all day long, you're gonna improve business.
I love and hate those shorts and reels. It is crazy. If I want to lose an hour of my life, all you got to do is hit the reels button. Before you know it, you're thinking, oh my God, like 45 minutes has just gone by. And I couldn't even tell you anything I watched. Occasionally I'll take a quick screenshot if it's something I'm like, oh, that was really cute or something like that. But man, that's so true. I mean, they are addicting, fast and simple. And I still haven't quite got my head wrapped around about how to create them. But obviously, clearly I need to get better at that.
Yeah. And what to tangent, to piggyback off that, a lot of people feel that way. They're like, oh, people are already making all these TikToks and there's already all these resellers doing these TikToks and reels and stuff like that. So I probably won't get any attention. That's the wrong attitude to have. Absolutely. Because we're still pretty far ahead of the curve as far as the number of resellers there are versus the number of resellers that are creating content. If you can get ahead of the curve, and I would very much argue that we're ahead of the curve right now, just start putting content out there. And if it doesn't do well, keep doing it because it will do well eventually. You'll get better. Your audience will slowly increase and start to snowball. So just start doing it.
I do know in marketing, when it comes to marketing, typically, I mean, I don't know who told me this, how many 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but you have to try something 3 times.
Yeah.
Because and I used to fall in this trap too, where I try something once, like that didn't work. And then I would go on to something else. I'm like, well, I didn't even give that a chance, So sometimes you have to fall down a few times before, that same thing that you just did the last time actually starts getting some traction. So
and that
I know that's true.
That never stops. You have to remember that think about like the New York Times. They've been pushing out content for quite a few years, right? Well, most of their content they would probably consider like not a failure, but compared to their big, huge viral stories, they're kind of a failure because they're just coasting along with most of their posts, and then every once in a while they'll have an article that just like contributes to a ton of their readership. You have to remember that process never stops. So if you are just starting out now, take Andrew's advice and just keep doing it, because while your numbers are much lower than the New York Times, the phenomenon is still exactly the same, where you're looking at a post and you're like, man, that post got 2 likes, that one got 4, but this one got 16, and then this one got 3, this one got 2. The same thing happens at every company, just to a different scale. So just keep pushing. That's like the number one thing you can do.
What are some of the best practices as far as SEO goes for resellers that they can implement on their websites?
Okay. So SEO, or search engine optimization, those kind of rules, I'll call them, they apply to pretty much every website. And really what we're trying to do is we're trying to do our best to prove to Google that we know what the heck we're talking about. So the number one absolute thing that you can do is post content to your website. So let's say that you see some trends in your store, or let's say that you have become your own expert on like, let's say, World War II weapons. Write some blog posts about that, because someone somewhere is going to be interested in that. Okay. But not only that, when someone comes to your website and they click around and they see that you're writing all these articles that that are talking about all sorts of different things related to your business, they're going to think, either subconsciously or consciously, that, hey, these people know what they're talking about. So what you're trying to do with SEO is prove to Google that you know what you're talking about, and prove to people that you know what you're talking about. So that's the number one thing: post content to your website. Then all the other tactics and rules, a lot of those are pretty technical. Like, make sure that you're using the right keywords on your website. So I've worked with a lot of clients that I'm like, well, what is it that you do? And they will tell me what they do. And I'll say, well, then how come you don't say that on your website? Right? It's like, use the words on your website that you would use to describe yourself, because that's how other people are going to describe you as well. So I had a dentist office I worked with years ago, and he's like, oh yeah, we're a specialty dentist. We focus on the whole body rather than just individual pieces of your teeth. Like, for example, they don't use mercury fillings. And they were like, because that's bad for you, right? Mercury's not great. So I was like, why don't you say that then? You know what I mean? So just think about your business, think about what you do, put that into words on your website, because that's really what Google's looking for. There's a lot of technical things that you can do, but that goes down a rabbit hole.
I know back in the olden days, it was more keyword focused.
Mm-hmm.
So some of these websites you would go to, it was like, am I reading, like, this is not normal, like, verbiage for somebody to put on a website. Like, this looks like it's like for another computer to read,
Mm-hmm.
not for me, right?
Well, I think years ago, I remember people getting in trouble, and yeah, they actually started getting banned or blacklisted, whatever you want to call it, on Google. They would hire a company, or they would have a whole web that would have thousands of keywords that you can never even see or access. And I think Google either got smart about that. I can't remember. Obviously, I'm a little fuzzy on that, but
right.
I remember a friend of mine's website, literally you couldn't find it because of he paid, $500 to a company who did something like that, a keyword thing to their website,
and it cost them
Google
thousands.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
But yeah, and then you would get articles and stuff that's like, who can read this? This is crazy. It's like a keyword list of keywords over and over. Like, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Right.
Like, it's no information for me to
They call that keyword
now
stuffing.
Google's like, Google's like, we're on to you. You're not going to be in our rankings.
Yep.
And so the best advice probably is just to be as natural as possible.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's why I don't focus on the technical stuff anymore. If you asked me this 5 years ago, I'd have been like, you need to do this. You need to make sure your metadata. You need to make sure your title tags, things like that. But in the reality, the number one thing that helps, and what clients and customers need to hear, is just write stuff on your website and be natural. Yeah, absolutely.
How can resellers use social media to increase sales? What's the best way for them to go about that, you think?
Honestly, a lot of what we just talked about. Just be natural. Post the things that you have for sale. Post some content.
That sounds crazy. What?
Yeah, it does sound crazy. And what's funny about that is, like, if I tell people, I'm like, a lot of the people that I work for don't post the things that they have for sale on Facebook. They're just like talking about all these other things. It's like, what? Yeah, that's like a very low hanging fruit. Restaurants. I do a lot of work for restaurants, and that's one of the main gripes that I have. Is you wouldn't believe how many local restaurants are out there don't post pictures of their food. They don't talk about the specials that they're having. They don't talk about this. They don't talk about that. It's like, how easy could it be to just post the things that you're trying to sell? So that is definitely number one.
It probably takes 20, 30 seconds to put a post on Facebook. If I had a booth at an antique mall, I swear, twice a week, I'd walk into my antique mall. I'd just take my phone. I would take 20 pictures. And as I was sitting at home on commercial breaks on my TV shows, I would say I'd post that item for a price, give a description, where it is, where they can find it. And once again, not every single post is going to be a home run, but I love bunt singles.
Right.
I'll take a bunt single all day long.
100%. Make it part of your workflow. If you're a vendor in an antique mall, no vendor I've ever talked to doesn't go to their booth at least once a month. Most of them go once a week. So go into your booth, refresh it, take some pictures of your refresh, post them throughout the week, and then do the same thing next week. Don't make social media your enemy. It shouldn't be too much extra work. It will be at first, but it'll just turn into your workflow and naturally just happen. Because that's what I tell business owners. Take pictures, put them up. Take pictures, put them up. Talk about what's going on. It's that simple.
So that's something I've always, like I was talking about earlier, is that I get inside my own head with marketing and I'm like, well, how would I want this? And I want to do all these cool things. And at the end of the day, just take some pictures and post them, right? With a comment, with your website link on it and a phone number for someone to call you. Not every post or not everything you do has to be super spectacular with all the filters and everything going on. It can just be simple. And a lot of times simple is better. And, I hate it when I catch myself adding a filter to something. I'm just like, what are you doing? Like, people know that's a filter. People know that's not the way the light is actually coming. So I check myself, but it's hard. It's hard to check myself on that stuff.
And I think too that now with the way the apps have advanced, they can take those photos and make a short reel video out of them in Facebook.
Yep.
Like Facebook has all the stuff to do to make the slideshow.
Well, while you're sitting there refreshing your booth, it would only take you a second just as you slowly pan with your phone in a video, 30-second reel with what you have in there with,
slap some music on it.
Once again, they make it easy for you. They want you to do it. They have, copyrighted music that you can add to that stuff to give it a little bit of a twist. And you can have some flash ins and flashes out and all that fun stuff. I'm surprised more people just don't do it. To me, that'd be just as much fun as selling stuff, is getting kind of creative with my marketing and kind of having fun with that.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, Travis, I think we could sit here and talk to you all day long.
I could definitely talk.
Easy.
we could keep learning stuff, and hopefully our viewers have taken some things today that they've written down. And
for sure. And if they have any questions, we're all an open book. Just reach out to us.
Yeah. So if you guys have any related questions for Travis that we didn't cover, or you'd like for him to cover more, obviously put some comments down below. If you want to talk to Travis, I'm sure if you make a comment, he'll get back to you. But we also want you guys to visit CASA, CASA members.org for more information on how to become a better reseller and to gain some more knowledge.
And as always, it is 100% free to become a member. And we try to supply you guys with the most valuable information we can and have the best guests for you.
Travis, do you have a website?
Is
it any good?
Is
it any good?
No. So
you're the typical carpenter who can build the most beautiful thing, but then when you go home, his house looks like trash because they're always like, I just don't have time. I'm tired.
Yeah. Or like a mechanic, you never want to buy a mechanic's car. No, I don't really take on much new business. My client set is pretty set. So I'm really not pursuing any new business. That's kind of why I say, you can reach out to me. I'll answer your questions. Comment on this video. I think that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
That's always good whenever you aren't taking on new business. That must mean you're doing something right.
I hope so.
You can get in touch with us, contact@casamembers.org.
So.
All right, with that, we will sign off. Appreciate it, you again, Travis. Derik, as always good to chat. And I'll talk to you all later.
Bye, guys.